Welcome to the Coach Harp Show. Today, it's an honor to have Dr. Chuck Morris.
Thanks, Coach.
Chuck, how about give a little bit introduction of who you are and what you do?
Sure, awesome. So my name is Dr. Chuck Morris. I'm a PhD, not MD. My degree is in exercise science. I'm a human performance specialist. I am the director of the NFL Alumni Performance Lab. New extensions just started about 18 months ago. I've been doing this full time for about 25 years. I was a health and fitness coach of the entire city of Philadelphia. I've traveled internationally teaching human performance, emotional intelligence. We've been blessed to have Olympic gold medalists, MVPs, and really the model is how do you help someone become the best version of themselves using actual science. So for the last more than 2 decades, that's been the mission. The mission has really been how do we help people perform better? And it's taken me all over the place. So I guess in a broad stroke, the rest of it, I guess, is super cool details, but that's me in a nutshell. Mad scientist who believes everybody is an uncontrollable act of God, and we just have to help them understand how to do that.
Wow, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Chuck. I'm really proud of what you accomplished. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'd like to know more about what are some of the things you did growing up?
Wow, growing up. So I grew up in Philadelphia. We called it the concrete jungle. So I was raised by a single mother with 2 sons who believed that she had to raise men that were honorable, that were intelligent, and had good character. So my mom did a phenomenal job. And what that really meant was the way she framed us was our character, spirituality was 1, and then 2nd was education, and then 3 was how do we affect the community. So that caused me to grow up in a way that always held me accountable, and then always figured out how I can help other people in really, really tough times, and grew up poor, quite transparently. I remember walking to school with holes in my shoes and kind of weird things like that don't make cool stories in the moment. But it also taught me that I was responsible for myself. So that had me growing up in a way that was very focused on accomplishing the goal, figuring out how to see beyond my surroundings, but beyond what I can see and touch. How do I get further in life? So it grew me up very humble, but very love-centered, very driven. And it took us to a lot of weird places that I guess we wouldn't have thought I've gone. But that was, I guess, the spirit behind how we grew up with a lot of hardships of life surrounding.
I know as we talked about before, stuff like that, I know, how about we touch a little about your military experience too?
Yeah, so I was in the U.S. Army for a short period of time. I was injured after 2 years. I loved being in the Army. It was something I really wanted to do. I broke my mother's heart, graduated with honors, scholarship to go to university, and I chose to go into the Army instead. So my mom didn't speak to me for almost a year. But when I received my PhD, I gave it to her. But my time in the Army was so amazing because I felt like it was a place where it spoke to who I was as a person. We had a mission, we had an objective, and no single person was more important than the rest of it. So when I was in the Army, I was doing urban combat, anti-terrorist training. I was doing optical laboratory stuff, people that made glasses. I was doing administrative things. And I would have done it until either I died or retired was my plan. It was a wonderful experience. The injury caused me to have to get out of it. But when I got into the Army, I carried over into the Army my upbringing. And when my sergeants at basic training met my mother, my father, and they said, we didn't make him like this. She's like, no, he's always been like that.
got you your love for working out?
Initially, my initial first love for working out was we moved from from Philadelphia into New Jersey. And this sounds funny, but the part of New Jersey we moved to was called Willingboro. And I never forget the day one. Day one, we're driving around and we're in this area called Country Club. And Coachharp, there's no sidewalks. So I said to my mom and dad, these people are so rich that nobody walks. Because I didn't see any sidewalks. Yeah. So needless to say, there was a bit of a culture shock. And by the way, everybody wasn't so rich that they didn't walk. It's just they didn't have sidewalks in this area. So it was such a culture shock to me. I was in a new place. I was in high school out of Philadelphia. And I had a pretty good clip to get home from school. And both my parents now work. So I needed to find something to do that helped settle my mind, help deal with all this emotional turmoil I had. And one day after school, I was walking through the gym to cut through for a shortcut. And I walked into another room in the gym trying to figure out how to get out. It was a weight room. And the gym teacher told me I can come work out whenever I want. So that started this love of working out every day for about an hour and a half to 2 hours. It gave me something to do with my energy, with my frustration, with my anxiety. I mean, there was so much going on with me as a teenager that began, hey, if I could do something with me that I can control, and then I found out that I absolutely loved it. I mean, I fully had no idea what it was going to be like to try something, not be able to do it, push further, the excitement and feeling I get from that. And I look up and all of a sudden other people want to do it with me. I said, hey guys, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just reading books and doing stuff. And that was my first expression of not only finding or being introduced to exercise, but stumbling into how important it is for me as a human being, for all of us, and how it actually helped me deal with a lot of mental and emotional stuff that at the time, I just completely didn't understand.
As you mentioned, you're a mad scientist. How about give a little bit of explanation of what exercise science is and how the body moves?
Yeah, I love it. Thank you, Coach. So despite popular belief, especially currently, there's a thinking that says anybody and everybody can be a fitness coach, a trainer, anything to do with wellness. It seems to be this concept of if I accomplished anything, I lost weight or I got stronger or I got faster, then I'm now an expert and I can teach other people how to do the same thing, which hurts my heart because it belittles the significance of our humanity. So exercise science is really a discipline that focuses on the science of how the body moves, how it functions, and how it relates to gravity and exercise. We also go into functional neuroscience, which really is how the brain moves, how the brain, not moves, but how the brain dictates policy to the rest of our body. So exercise science is the discipline of applying identifiable, quantifiable, current science in multiple aspects of that in different disciplines to the human body with an end result of that human body functioning in space that could be an exercise or a sport. So that's what exercise science really encompasses. And I had no idea I was going to do it. When I received my injury in the Army, which I split both my patellas, which if you don't, it beat my knee. And they told me I'd never walk again or get a surgery to replace them. That is what had me shift from the traditional Army education stuff into, hey, there's got to be another answer. So that's what sparked this journey that led me down this track of exercise science.
Wow, that's so in-depth. I'm really honored that you share that with us today. Thank you. As we talked about the what, let's get into the why, because the thing is, why do you do what you do?
I hear that a lot. So my why has evolved, quite transparently. It's evolved. I remember at some point I wanted to be the best that ever did it. And then I wanted to be the most impactful as I matured, to get as much information out as I could. But my why basically had a few key turning points. So I remember he's since passed on. My first cousin, we were raised as brothers. I'm doing life. And he calls me one day, and we're adults, we're in our 20s. And he says to me, "Hey, Chuck, I want you to do me a favor." I said, "Okay." And he said, "Take your phone." And this is when phones were connected to the wall with cords. He said, "Take the phone and put it to your right ear." I said, "Okay." He said, "Did you do it?" I was like, "Yes, I'm doing it." He says, "Okay, now hold the phone in your shoulder." And I'm like, "Okay." And I'm on the phone like this. He can't see me. There's no video call. He's like, "Are you doing it?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm doing it. What do you want?" He said, "Okay, now take your right hand and go across your body and touch your back." Harp, this is me on the phone. He said, "Are you doing it?" I was like, "Lee, I'm doing it." What? And he said to me, "I haven't been able to do that since we were in high school." And I just had this moment. I've always seen him as my brother and whatever it was. And he expressed to me his frustration with feeling like he had gained so much weight. His energy was leaving him. He felt less and less like himself. And in that moment, quite transparently, in that moment, I don't know if I ever cared that much about other people other than, hey, if they're in my space, we can do something. And this thing came alive in me that does not have to be his reality. I know better. And that was the first thing that had me really thinking with some sense of intensity and urgency outside of myself to really help people, and not just lose a couple of pounds, but really help people accomplish something in wellness and health and how they feel about themselves. And that ran me for years. Then I had a shift and I had a cancer patient years later who she just wanted to be able to survive chemotherapy. And again, I'm like, well, we can. And that took me to more of a hard wellness science concept of what does chemotherapy do? How does the body combat it? And as we were doing training together and doing the nutrition, she became a spokesperson at our cancer research center in Philadelphia, specifically because the doctors were saying how fast she bounced back and how she began to be an encouragement for everybody else in the space. Harp, after her chemo, coach, for 2 days, she could barely do anything. She walked into the gym and we just sat and talked and she worked her hands. After every session, the amount of time it took us to get her back to feeling strong and solid and powerful and clear mind, about a week later, she had to go back into chemo. She just kept doing it again and again and again until she won. So it had these evolutions. Like that was one, and then it was two. The third one became really when I became the health and fitness coach of Philadelphia, where the health czar, Gwen Foster at the time, we were the fattest city in the nation. I'm like, the fattest? And when it was all over, we became the fittest. And that brought me to a space of how do you coach an entire city? And again, so my why kept changing and the impact kept getting bigger and bigger. The next thing I know, we're pro athletes, Olympic champions, corporate executives. And while they have these personas to the rest of the world, all these top 1% people, when I look at them, they're somebody's mother, somebody's daughter, somebody's father, somebody's husband. And behind their public persona, the executive, the sports champion, they were a human being trying to get better. And that made me take another shift. So those were 4 really big shifts that changed my why, if that makes sense.
Well, I want to say that really moved me. And the biggest thing, what I'm a big fan of, is about the right mindset. As you're sharing that with us, I realized how you changed the mind of the athlete, the patient, or any walks of life that you came through. You transformed them into more loving themselves, That's awesome.
That's the plan, Coach. The rest of it fades away, right?
Yes.
You know it. I watch your stuff. I mean, I'm here because I'm here in this interview as a testament of who you are and how you affect life. Makes me say, when I got the invitation, of course. And we get a lot of invitations. I do, honestly. And I don't take all of them because it has to add value.
I appreciate that. That really touches my heart. Thank you.
Next week on the Coach Harp Show.
When did you start the NFL Health Club?